Hello, Lindsay. It's so good to
Hey.
see you this morning. My goodness. Okay, let's just be real here. Okay, we've done this three times. Okay, but let me just share this with you, with whoever is listening, whoever's watching. Just so you know, we are two mamas and wives that are so determined. Okay, get this out. So, this is a dear friend of mine that I've known for about 11 years, Lindsay Groth. She has been an RN for 2 years, an LPN before that. She has been involved in the hospital and labor and delivery area and helped the elderly as well. And she is a mama of three littles and an amazing wife to an amazing husband named Ryan Groth. And they are just two powerhouses that actually years ago when Andrew and I first got married, we sought their counsel for health advice because we were like, please help us. And they have helped us on our health journey so much through the years. And, we've been married for about 8 years. So we've known each other for almost 11 years now. So, Lindsay, some questions I want to ask you today. First, there's going to be about three, but the first question would be, what has motivated you to start your health journey?
Well, I'd have to say it was when I experienced some loss and pain in my family. Um, at the age of 14, my mom was 49 and she died of a sudden heart attack. And that kind of left our family pretty devastated. Um, my dad ended up taking care of all three of us. I have two older brothers, and he did the best he could, and he did a great job. But one of my brothers coped with it in a really difficult way. He started going into drugs, and when he moved out for college, that's when he started really getting heavy into drug use. So, about 3 years after my mom passed away, my brother overdosed and also passed away. So, after losing my mom and my brother, a few years after that, I feel like this is a totally different life ago because it's just crazy and surreal to think about all that went on. But my dad got diagnosed with colon cancer, and the doctors told him he had 6 months to live. I'm like 21 years old here.
Wow.
So at 21, I'm faced with losing my only caregiver. I mean, I'm 21, I'm an adult, but still, like, you know, you think about getting married one day and having children and graduating college. And I was looking at my dad and thinking he might not be there for any of those. So when my dad was diagnosed, he actually lived 3 years longer, which was a huge blessing. But by the age of 24, I was without any parents and only had one surviving brother. Um, so when I got married, my dad didn't walk me down the aisle.
Mm.
And when I had children, my mom and dad were never there. I never had the privilege of, hey, parents, can you take my kids? I just need a break. Like that kind of thing I think
Wow.
about all the time and thinking, wow, man, it'd be nice. But because of that, I've been able to take responsibility for my own health and choose to live in a way that doesn't repeat that cycle for my kids. So that's how I got started into the health journey because I didn't want to die when I was 49 like my mom of a heart attack. So,
That's an amazing story. I'm encouraged by you because of the loss. You've just leaned in to the hope that you have. And I think it's so powerful. Um, I did have one question that I know that we mentioned, and I would be just, I, I don't want people to not hear this part, but you are involved in the Western medicine side of things, but you've also noticed there's good things and there's not so good things in
right.
Western medicine, but you've also taken a look at the Eastern medicine side of things, which I
Mhm.
find incredibly intriguing because you've brought together the two. So could you just touch a little bit more on that, regarding Western medicine, Eastern medicine?
Awesome. Yeah, that's super key, Mary Kat. Good point. Um, like in Western medicine, because now I'm a registered nurse, I went to nursing school and um, We learned a lot about the physiology of diseases and how they get started in the body, but we don't really talk about the root. We weren't really trained in where the root causes of things come from, like disease, like like diet, and some people are now discovering.
Yeah.
Um, so for me, the Western medicine has been like an education into how our bodies work, the anatomy, what's going wrong when the diseases are present in the body. And for me, what we practice like a lot in our family, even though I'm a registered nurse, I don't take my kids every time they get sick to the doctor. The only time I would really take them to see a medical doctor in the hospital would be if one of them broke a bone or something, or there was an emergency in our family where there was a lot of blood going on, something like that.
Yeah.
Because I've learned over the years that Eastern medicine, which has been around for 6,000 years for a reason, they have just wonderful ways of treating things naturally. There's a lot of herbal remedies that they do. So
Yeah.
now discovering the Eastern medicine, and then also on top of that, discovering the diet connected to all that stuff, where I feel like our family benefits from both sides, where if an emergency happens, we have the medical community that's trained in Western medicine. And then when there are less severe things, like the body's just trying to support itself or heal itself from an illness, that's where I choose to do more natural things for my family.
So good. I know you said when you first started there was a few books that were really key, and that was Eat to Live
hmm
by which author?
That one's by Joel Furman.
And then the second one was The China Study, and the author is,
T. Colin Campbell.
and that is actually a book that you introduced Andrew and myself to years ago that really helped us. So those are just two resources that she had been reading at that time that have really impacted her life.
hmm
I suggest anyone to take some of those books as well, and really digest them.
Oh yeah.
Um, the next question I want to ask you is about how, now that you have your family and now that you're married, and you guys have so much like really amazing disciplines that you've incorporated into your life, but how have you taken what you've learned and incorporated it into your own family?
Well, that's a really good question. I would never want people to feel discouraged when they're getting into their health journey. I'd want people to feel like, oh, I can totally do that one
Yeah.
little thing.
Yeah.
So I remember my first thing, and I still love them to this day, and I still do them, is green smoothies. Mentioned that a little earlier, but really what they are, in its simplest form, is a handful of leafy greens with a non-dairy milk. We choose to do a non-dairy milk or a coconut water, along with some fresh fruits. And we typically use mango, but throw seeds and stuff in there like hemp seed, chia seed, flax seed. Sometimes we'll throw some cashews in there. And um, that is one step I felt like was huge in my progress of staying on like a more plant-based diet, because it was so easy, it was so tasty that you just put it in a blender and it's done. So that was one way I got started into doing things, and I still do that every single day with our children, because children can be so picky.
Yeah.
They're so picky sometimes, especially trying to get vegetables in them. I don't know if your kids are anything like my kids, but they see a vegetable and they're all but running, away from the table.
Yeah.
They don't like greens and things like that, no matter how I cook it. So for us, that's one way we get spinach, kale, collards, and we grow it all in our backyard, which is really special. For us, we like to incorporate fruits and vegetables into their diet through the smoothie. Then for lunchtime, we typically have a rice bowl of some sort. Then I'll put lentils in it, or I'll put edamame. They love edamame, like any kind of bean that I can. They really like beans. They don't really give me a problem with beans and rice. So I'll add that to their day, probably 4 or 5 times a week. And then for dinners, we usually add a little sauce to our meal. We kind of meal
Yeah.
plan most of
That's
the
good.
time so that we have things ready and I'm not like scrambling at 4 o'clock every day. But
Yeah.
so I'll just make like 10 meals beforehand, like on a Monday, and I'll make a little bit of vegetables, a little bit of like a smashed up sweet potato or cauliflower, something like that. And then I'll make this like sauce that kind of goes over everything. And the sauce has like chickpeas, mushrooms,
Mm.
vegetable broth. So that's really what I like to put on their little meals so that I know they're getting protein and things like that as a little sauce. And they think it's really yummy. So I feel like I'm having a mom win, you know?
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so those are simple ways we add fruits and vegetables into our diet, like especially with children because they can be so picky. But, as adults, sometimes you just have to do things you don't want to do all the time. So, like on the days that we just don't feel like eating those meals are the hardest days because you just have to cook the vegetable things that you've already prepared and just eat it because we eat to live, not live to eat, you know?
Right.
But sometimes on the weekends, like I'm not gonna lie, we'll go out and splurge in our own way. And I
Yeah.
think it's, for us, I don't want my kids to feel like they never got any kind of fun food. I just make sure that they know that they need to balance that and not always eat that because what happens when you always eat that, try to teach them that you can get sick. So that's
Yeah.
what we do a little bit in our
Yeah.
family.
I know you said that you don't want them to get out of the house and just go nuts because they weren't able to have certain things. So I think that's so good that you're just incorporating that, teaching them balance. You
Yeah.
said something that I want you to quickly touch on, and then maybe the last question you can talk about maybe something maybe you and Ryan do together as a team. But I know you mentioned something that I think is really powerful about the circadian rhythm, rhythm sleeping with your,
Right.
like your children going to sleep at the same time every day and just having kind of a routine. Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, totally. The routine we have at home for evening time is when the sun starts to go down, we take that as a cue that we're supposed to start getting ready for sleep. And we'll turn off all the lights so that as the sun goes down, it naturally darkens our home. Um, we'll turn the air conditioning lower so that it starts to get a little cooler inside the house. And we'll take showers and get nice and clean, brush our teeth. And after we're all warm in our PJs, we'll make a chamomile tea for them and they can sip on that while they read books with daddy. And then at the end, we'll just like rub essential oils on their tummies. And they always feel like excited to choose which oil they get to put on their bellies. And we either do peppermint or lavender so that they're like relaxed. And
It's
yeah,
awesome.
that's as the sun goes down and you don't stimulate them with screen time or artificial lights, the circadian rhythm in their brains just teaches their bodies naturally that it's time to go to sleep, and then when the sun comes up it's time to wake up. So for us, that's important so that we're not overstimulating them and we're not messing up their natural rhythms. And
Yeah.
us too, like at night when you sleep, your cells are recharging and a lot of hormone production and hormone like stuff is going on. So you don't want to mess too much with your sleep because it can cause depression and irritability, things like that. So, we really value sleeping in our home and try to make that done routinely every day and something very important.
So, lastly, I just wanted to ask you, what are some top things that are helping you thrive right now?
So, there is one thing that is so life giving right now for us, and it's our schedule. So, for me, I've chosen my top 5 things, which is um, meditation, eating, exercise, sleeping, and family time. Um, and for me, I take a clear schedule of my next following week and I make sure all 5 of those things are in there every day. So here's a quick like overview of what like a typical day is like in the Groth house. Ryan and I wake up between 5 and 6. Um, at 5:30, I drink my coffee and I meditate. And then at 6 o'clock, we have a personal trainer come 3 times a week, usually, sometimes
Awesome.
4. Um, come work us out for an hour from 6 to 7, just in our backyard because we have little kids. We don't leave the house, we can't leave them here. And they're usually
So
sleeping.
awesome.
It's
Wow.
awesome. It's been really good.
Gosh.
Then after that, we'll make a green smoothie with tons of greens and fresh coconut. And we peel out the inside of the coconut and add it to our smoothie. We sometimes have avocado, good healthy fats. Um, After that is usually when I will take the family and do like we are homeschooling our kids, so we'll do like adventures outside, or we'll go do things like arts and crafts. We'll go meet up with a friend at a park, all kinds of things. So then after that, I have a rest time in the middle of the day because after taking care of 3 kids, it can be quite exhausting.
Oh my
So we
goodness.
all nap. Even my 5-year-old, he's still on a schedule where he rests in
Rest
his
time.
bed. Yeah, he
Yeah,
rests.
we do that too.
Yeah. So we rest for 2 hours, and then we'll have a little bit of screen time because I do it during the day because I don't want them stimulated at night. So I
That's so
give
smart.
them some time during the day to watch their favorite show, which is Wildcrats. And then after that, we have our dinner and we start our bedtime routine when the sun is going down. So we really value sleeping. We'll go to bed at night between 9 and 10 every single night, so our body knows what to expect. And also, because we wake up so early, we're pretty exhausted by then. Um, so that's really been huge for us. When you're trying to optimize your energy and you only have so many hours in the day to do all the things you really think are important, you really have to be picky with the things that you lend your time to. And for my husband and I, we've thought, well, we can't buy health, so we need to really prioritize our health
So good.
and we need to be disciplined about it. So I know some people think, wow, I could never like do that, but when you're faced with like the loss and pain of things, of losing people and knowing that life doesn't always work out the way you think it should, those are really good motivators for doing hard things. So
Yeah.
that's been huge for Ryan and I to keep a disciplined health life in our home.
Wow. All of this is so good, Lindsay. I mean, just everything from just seeing heartbreak and now seeing hope and just living from that place of hope. That's what I see. And it's encouraging and it's possible for anybody, not just someone who, may be single, or not just someone who may be married and has someone to help them, or not just someone who, it's for everyone, pregnant people with children. I mean, what you just said is so key. You can't buy health. So I think that's such a high value, and what you guys are doing is really powerful. But thank you so much for just taking time today. And I know you're super busy with your life and things like that, but I think this is it's going to encourage a lot of people. So thanks, Lindsay.
Thank you,
And
Mary Kat.
guys, we're just going to continue this conversation. I look forward to more conversations with Lindsay and some others as well, just talking about and really focusing on thriving, what that looks like and how we can attain it. So I believe it's possible, and let's all go for it. Love you guys. Stay tuned and stay well.